to select literary criticism, special literary criticism for interpreting the poem. You know that if you want to give homage or credit to any poet or writer, you have to read him, you have to know him, you have to know his work. You are not obliged to like him or hate. It's not your job. But just know that he exists in the world with his work. And this thought is confirmed by Samuel Johnson, who once said, "I would be attacked then unnoticed. The worst thing you can do to another is to be silent as to his works." So it's important to know the writer and his works. Also, the necessity of literary criticism is argued by the poet, the Russian-American poet Joseph Brodsky. Joseph Brodsky says that after you finish reading or after the last line in a poem, what follows? After the last line in a poem, what follows is literary criticism. So, literary criticism as an approach, or the approach, the theory you should apply in order to interpret and read or reread a poem, re-examine it, recapture the loss in it is important. There are many types of literary criticism, as we already saw. We have the pragmatic, historical criticism, high criticism, new criticism, Marxist criticism. But I have selected five major ones for the analysis of Romantic poetry, and in particular for Grecian Urn. Out of 5, we should select, up to my own interpretation, 3 approaches. So, the 5th approaches or criticisms are like as follows. We have the mimetic criticism, literary criticism. Mimetic comes from the teaching of Aristotle, and it means that any literary work is an imitation of real life or real world. I agree with that. Then we have the pragmatic criticism, which appears by the 18th century, and this criticism focuses on the effect of the literary work on the reader. Then we have the expressive criticism, to express the emotion, the feeling, the spirit, the perception, the thoughts, the beliefs, and this is suitable for Romantic critics, and I agree with expressive criticism also to a great extent. Then we have we have the mimetic, the pragmatic, the expressive. Then we have the didactics criticism. Didactics, we are in literature. Yes, didactics criticism is a school that focuses on the teaching or the lesson that any literary work holds. So any literary work has ethical and values to transmit to the reader for the teaching of society. Then we have the biographical criticism. It focuses on the biography of the author and how this can contribute to the understanding of that enigma, that poem full of mysteries, puzzles, riddles. The life of the writer is helpful to understand the poem, and this is recommended too much for the Romantic poetry. To analyze Romantic poetry, biographical criticism is very important. That's why the next video, inshallah, will be about the lives of the Romantics from the first generation, William Wordsworth, William Blake, and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and the second generation, Lord Byron, Percy P. Shelley, and John Keats. This is about the approach. Now, the Romanticism as a movement is considered by historians as a great achievement. Though it's an event that isn't technological nor political, but it is classified as very great event in history because it comes as with new feelings, new mindsets, new ideas against industrial revolution, against machines, against factories, smokes, pollution, exploitation of the human mind, the human being, the neglect of the emotion, the neglect of the feeling, compassion, sympathy. Romanticism comes against the technological, the scientific, the rational world. It comes against secularization, against urbanization, and against consumerism. It first appeared in Western Europe, and for this there are many books as arguments for that, but I prefer to select only two. I personally like so much the Swiss philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote a book called Émile, or on education. Émile by Jean-Jacques Rousseau focuses on the innocence of children, on their rights for a peaceful life. You know that in the time of Industrial Revolution, parents sold their children to the owners of the factories in order to clean them, in order to sweep the chimneys and so on. So this is awful, and this makes children lost in the streets, half dead, sick, in a miserable status. So Émile on education, the book for Jean-Jacques Rousseau, comes to support and raise awareness about the innocence of children against the oppressive world of adults. Then we have a second book which helps in the evolution of Romanticism, the German philosopher Goethe. The German philosopher Goethe contributed to the raising of Romanticism with his book The Sorrows of Young Werther. The Sorrows of Young Werther is an excellent book, praised by Napoleon as a great achievement in European literature. It's about Werther, who plays the role of the poet in the book, and has a love of his life, Charlotte. Unfortunately, Werther is deceived in love by losing Charlotte, who is married to another man. So he is all along the book. He is in incessant pursuit for love and art. By the end, Werther loses hope and commits suicide. So Goethe was very smart and intelligent to attract the readers. To attract the reader's attention, and makes the reader share compassion with Werther in spite of being despised by committing suicide. He makes the reader share compassion with Werther, who was in eternal pursuit for love and art, but unfortunately in vain. So Romanticism, all in all, comes as a reaction against anything rational, against Enlightenment age, rather favoring the Middle Ages, considering them as age of courage, chivalry, and innocence. It focuses on the feelings, on the emotion. It sustained and supports and the Romantics bow to nature as powerful, to stand by its side, to contemplate it, to let the men be controlled by the power of nature, not like before Enlightenment, men controls over nature. And this is why Romantics have a backward looking to the past, to all what is lost, and they try to retain what is left. That's where their job. Though there were differences in these characteristics between the first generation of the Romantics and the second generation. That's what we should that's what we should see in the following videos. As for the period of Romanticism is there is a year that most of critics agree on it, the year of the publication of lyrical ballads by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, with the ballads and the lyrics by Wordsworth. They share together a book and call it lyrical ballads in the year 1798. The year 1798 is the year of the publication of the book Lyrical Ballads, and at the same time it's a year that most critics agree on it to have it as the starting year for the appearance or the launching of Romanticism as a movement, though other critics disagree with this year and prefer to go back a decade back before. It means Lyrical Ballad 1798. They prefer to go to 1789 as a starting year for the publication, as a starting year for Romanticism as a movement. and it is the year of the publication of the poems of innocence, poems of experience by the Romantic William Blake. So some said in 1789 as a publication of the book of William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, and this year is suitable for the beginning of Romanticism. Others prefer lyrical ballads produced in 1798 as the starting year for the Romanticism as a movement in English literature. Last of all, we can say that this movement didn't last so long. It ends before the mid of Victorian age. Well, Victorian age, you know, that's the first writers of the period were like Jane Austen, like Maria Edgeworth, like Walter Scott, are considered as novelists, but as early Victorians. That's why they are called romantic writers. Romantic writers because they lived the era of Romanticism. But most of critics said that the novel, the traditional novel that started in the 17th to the 18th century. Then we have the novel, the Victorian novel in the 19th century. Romanticism was very short, maybe the shortest movement in all the movements of literature, and it was called like a pause, like a break from the novel, then back to the novel. Romantic poetry was like a break, occupying a decade or very short period for those marvelous poems, full of enigma, full of riddles, full of puzzles, full of allegories, of figures of speech. When you read a romantic poem, it's not that easy. You have to read between the lines. You have to know the approach. You have to know the poet. You have to know the circumstances or the occasion of that poem and the status that the romantic was in: drowsy, conscious, hating, loving, aching, in peace, in struggle. All these ups and downs that any human being may endure were deeply endured by the poets, and this is clear in their works. So this is all for this video. All in all, we said that Ode on Grecian Urn can be a frustration if you don't understand it very well, because we hate and we feel things we don't understand, as most philosophers agree upon, and providing in explanatory videos about Ode on Grecian Urn is primordial, because as a teacher I agree with Albert Einstein when he says that if you cannot explain it for a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. So in order to prove that I do understand Ode on Grecian Urn, I have to provide a 6-year-old explanation for the poem. That's what you should expect from me very soon. Thank you for today. That's all.